I'm going to talk about people, machines, and money. This, in a rather reduced form, is the project that I take from Marx. He found that at the time, people in their work were tied to the machines of the new factories and subordinated to the power of big money. And he and his partners hoped that somehow this order of organization, giving priority to money, and through money controlling machines, and through the machines the people, would be reversed. And that's, in a broad sense, my political project, also my writing project. So I want to start, I'm going to give three sections then, one on machines, then one on money, and finally the people. 10 years ago I left Cambridge to go to live in Paris, where I hoped to become a writer. But that left another question, which was, what was I write about? And since I had this opportunity to reinvent myself, I decided to ask what future generations would be interested in us for. And I decided that we would be considered to be distinctive for the rather rapid and radical steps that humanity was taking at this time to form a single interactive social network whose active symbol is the internet. So I considered that I can see that this is going to be difficult. I thought I've allowed myself to get into a hybrid situation of speaking from notes when I normally don't speak from any, but I'll get over it eventually. So the question is then, what is our moment in history? And I think it's quite distinctive, especially in the last 2 decades. And I would make the claim that humanity made a world society more or less for the first time in the last 2 decades, basing it on 3 points. The first was the collapse of the Soviet Union, opening up the whole world economy to neoliberal capitalism. The second was the entry of India and China and their 2 billion people into the world economy as active agents in their own right. And the third, of course, was the invention of the internet, which really only became a public institution in the 1990s. These 3 things together, it seems to me, have taken what was an incipient process over a longer period and made it into something quite distinctive that future generations will be interested in us for. That is, how is it, I believe that the choices that we make, incompetent and ignorant as they may be, will have far-reaching consequences for the future. And it's worthwhile making some effort to consider that. More generally, I would argue that the whole period since the Second World War has seen an accelerated unification of human society on this planet, symbolized perhaps in the 1960s by the fact that we saw the world from the outside for the first time as a result of the space race. So this question of what is distinctive about our moment is very closely tied to what I take to be our present phase of the machine revolution. And this machine revolution is essentially a process that has lasted so far only 200 years, no more than 8 generations. And it consists of, before 1800, almost all the energy at human disposal came from animate power, from human beings, from animals and plants. And in the last 200 years, we've come to rely more heavily on machines, that is, on converters of inanimate energy, principally fossil fuels. Now, in that time, in that last 200 years, the world's population has gone from 1 billion people to 6 billion people. The percentage of people living in cities went from 1 in 40 to now roughly half. And energy production increased on average by 3% a year. Now, this process of accelerated technological development can be understood in terms of 3 principal complexes. And I want to talk about this because it helps us, I think, to situate ourselves in the present phase of the machine revolution. The first of these, of course, was steam power. And I just want to lay out some of the dates and the time that it took to evolve. I mean, Newcomen's steam engine was 1712. In 1776, Boulton and Watt posted the patent that made the steam engine suitable for factory use. Machines used in factories became general after the Napoleonic Wars in the 1820s, but it took until the 1860s in Marx's Capital for the first economists to notice that machines played an important part in the political economy of capitalism. So that's about 150 years. If you take the second great complex of technological developments, electricity, Faraday discovered or made electricity in the 1830s. Edison managed to convert electricity to widespread social use in the 1880s. But it was only in the interwar period, in the 1990s, that for the first time most factories used electricity, and more than half of, or 80% of American homes had been converted to electricity by then. And the intellectual recognition of the social possibilities of this technical development had to wait until after the Second World War, the 1950s and 60s, with the development of cybernetic systems theory and so on. Now, our moment in the machine revolution is the digital revolution in communications, the convergence of phones, television and PCs into a single framework of communication. Now, again, the phone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell in 1876. For a long time, it was considered to be something that would only have very limited and elite application. By now, of course, phones have saturated society on most of the planet, and even in Africa, where there are developments going on that are unique in the world. For example, in East Africa, the first multinational phone network has been established, and the first use of mobile phones for transferring money has been pioneered there too. And indeed now, if you want to get as close to a realistic sample of the ordinary population, you have to make it by phone. Television, as you know, was invented in the 1920s. It really only became a significant part of social life in the 1950s. Video was invented in the 1970s. And the PC, and that's a separate thing. Computers, the first big computer, ENIAC, was constructed in 1946. Most of the major technological breakthroughs on which our phase of the machine revolution depends were discovered in the Second World War, things like the transistor, radar, and so on. By the 1990s, the internet went public and the World Wide Web was born. So if you compare this with steam power or electricity, it seems that our moment is comparable to the time around 1800 when steam engines entered factories as a significant social force, or in the 1880s when Edison made electricity something with wide social application. Which means more that I would imagine that we're looking at a period of a half century or more in which the full social application of these new technologies will become more obvious, and perhaps even later when it will be possible to develop more comprehensive theorization of the process.